Let's go ahead and look at this next set of sutras. And these sutras are all about focus. So focus is really what yoga is all about, at least according to Patanjali. And we'll start by looking at Sutra 1.2. So this is the second sutra in the entire book. And remember, when we were talking about presence, we were talking about how the first sutra is really encompassing all of what the entire text is about. Well, the same can be said for this second sutra. If presence is what yoga is all about, or at least what the Yoga Sutra is all about, this idea of focus is the skill that we need to develop in order to be present. And so Sutra 1.2 focuses on this skill of focus. And it is really this skill of focus that the entire Yoga Sutra is helping us to build. So Yoga Sutra 1.2 here I have translated as yoga is the integration and channeling of the fluctuations of the mind. And you can break that down even further to simply say yoga is about focusing the mind on one thing. Now, this might be different than the translation that you are used to seeing, and I will fully admit that this does not say yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind, which is the common translation. But I take this translation from Chase Bossart, who is an American student of Desikachar. Desikachar was the son of Krishnamacharya. And something that Desikachar really taught his students was that yoga is not about stopping the mind necessarily. And this is something that Chase really takes up a lot in his teachings around the Yoga Sutra. And the reason why I personally have a problem with the word cessation, and Chase might make this same argument, is that when you tell people that yoga is about the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind, that really means that yoga is about stopping the mind or stilling the mind. And that's troublesome for a lot of people, because when you tell someone yoga is about stopping the mind, the immediate reaction, at least in my personal experience, has been, oh, well, I can't do that. My mind is crazy. It's a monkey mind. I've got thoughts going all over the place all the time. There's no possible way for me to do that, and so I'm not even going to try. It becomes a barrier to entry, quite honestly, when you tell people that the whole point of yoga is to stop their mind. And while it might seem aspirational and it might be something that they are like, oh, I wish I could do that, it's so far from their current experience that they can't even begin to think about what the first step would be. And quite honestly, some people are scared of what it would be like to stop their thoughts or their mind. I can give you two really concrete examples. One is a client that I used to work with, just really struggled with this idea of not having a busy mind. She used having a busy mind as a coping mechanism for dealing with stress and anxiety. And when she didn't have thoughts in her mind, she didn't know what to do. And it was actually a trigger for some pretty serious anxiety and some pretty serious panic attacks. So she didn't want to stop her mind. She wasn't interested in stopping her mind. At the same time, having a busy mind caused her anxiety. So she was in a bit of a negative feedback loop. And as I was able to teach her that we weren't trying to stop her thoughts, we were simply trying to focus her thoughts on something more peaceful, she found a lot of relief and a lot of benefit from making that little mindset shift. The second example I want to give you is really recent. I live with my in-laws currently, and my in-laws have 4 children. My husband is the oldest, and over the past couple of weeks, a couple of the daughters, my sisters-in-law, came home to live in the house with us as we're going through this COVID-19 global pandemic. And we were having a family meeting, just setting some ground rules. How are we all going to live together in lockdown for the course of an indefinite period? And my one sister-in-law was talking about how she needs constant noise. She needs to have things going on around her. And if it's really quiet, it really bothers her. And I'm the exact opposite. I love quiet. In fact, I can't focus and do my work if I have distractions all around me. And I think that you could probably relate to this. Maybe you also really love quiet and you need that quiet time and that space to focus on your work. Or maybe you're like my sister-in-law. You like to have the TV on in the background just for background noise. Or you like to have music on while you're doing your work. And there's nothing wrong with that. That might just be what you're comfortable with. But then telling someone who is used to having that distracting noise in the background that you have to stop your thoughts completely and have nothing but complete stillness and silence, that's really scary and it's really uncomfortable. And some people just don't want that. So they might turn away from yoga and say something like, yoga's not for me because I have no interest in stopping the mind. And that's such a shame in my mind because there are so many practices and benefits that we can get out of yoga, so many lessons we can learn from yoga. We shouldn't let this one fear stop people from practicing yoga. Maybe their practice is a little bit different than ours. When you take this sutra, Sutra 1.2, and you take away that word cessation, and you put in the integration and channeling of the fluctuations of the mind, or even more simply, when you tell your students yoga is just about learning how to focus, all of a sudden I think that's what a lot of people can get behind. Because we all need to focus, most of us. I won't speak for everyone, but I know I really struggle with focus, and a lot of people really struggle with focus. Companies, giant corporations struggle to figure out how to get their employees to focus. We all get distracted in this world that we live in where we have information coming at us 24 hours a day and it's hard to keep up. So telling someone that yoga is all about learning how to focus, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can get behind that. Tell me more. So yoga is the integration and channeling of the fluctuations of the mind. That's how I interpret Sutra 1.2. And again, that's based on the work of Chase Bosart, who was influenced and taught by TKV Desikachar, who's the son of Krishnamacharya. Now, one other thing that I want to say here before we move on to the next sutra is that, very simply, Patanjali is defining yoga as a practice for the mind. So you might ask, well, where is all of our asana coming from? And that's a great question. And the answer is, there really isn't any asana in the Yoga Sutra. And that's okay. Traditionally, this text was written to be all about meditation. Yoga was about this meditation practice. The asana practice that we know and love today that is dealing with the body and the postures really had no place in Patanjali's time. And so the text doesn't reference that. So how do we use these ideas and integrate them into our yoga asana classes? Since most of us are teaching yoga asana, the postures, to our students. And while these sutras don't necessarily directly relate to the asana posture practice that so many of us are teaching, the lessons that they are teaching us can absolutely be adapted to fit the asana practices that we are teaching. So for example, even though this particular sutra is all about developing focus for the mind, that really has a huge benefit for our asana practice because there are so many asanas, so many postures that we can practice that require a great deal of focus for us to balance, for example, or for us to bring more awareness into what's going on in our body so that we're not distracted by things outside of us, so that we're not using asana as a distraction from the realities of the rest of our life, which is probably more common than we think. So these very same ideas, concepts, principles, qualities, lessons that the sutra give us can absolutely be applied directly to the asana posture-based practices that we are engaging in our studios, with our clients, with our students. And I just want to make that really clear. Patanjali is talking about yoga as being a practice for the mind. Asana is a practice for the body, but the lessons that Patanjali teaches us about the mind can absolutely be adapted to the posture practice that we partake in our studios.